Hi everyone, it's Burt and Suzy, and we're back today to talk about awakening to the non-dual reality. Burt, if you could offer one piece of advice to someone out there who's been struggling or trying to awaken to the reality of non-duality or have a spiritual awakening or enlightenment, what one piece of advice right now, with all your knowledge after all these years, would you find would be the best piece of advice you could give to someone?
The one thing that I would stress is to be totally empty at the moment.
What exactly does that mean?
To be empty at the moment means not to be concerned about what happened yesterday or what to say or what to do. You're not afraid of the future. You're totally present here now. Um, the thing is not something that you're going to achieve. It is who you already are. So the important thing is that if you find you're think very heavily most of the time, if you're negative most of the time, don't worry about it. Just be aware that you can forgive it and let it go. And the whole point that we're going to stress is how to let go. In other words, how to forgive yourself so that you can be in the moment all the time. And that brings you to that point.
So forgiveness is the key.
Forgiveness is the key, yes.
So what exactly does forgiveness consist of? Say, for instance, somebody's feeling a little stressed out. They're really worried about something that's going to happen in the future. At that point in time, what exactly would forgiveness consist of?
Yeah. Our true nature, believe it or not, is here now. Is here. Just here. That's all you are. And by knowing that and allowing that to be, you become aware that if you're not feeling good, if you're worried, concerned, ill at ease, then you take a deep breath, see it for what it is, and let it go. And you let it go by simply seeing that this is not who you are. This is concerned about the future, what you're going to be doing, how you should be acting. And so you see the nonsense of it, the extraordinary activity of it, the work of that, and you just let it go.
Okay.
And letting it go simply means, and that's what forgiveness is, simply means that it's not serving anything. It's just like taking a deep breath. It's nothing.
Okay, so if that's not who you are, how is it you've come to mistaken yourself for that?
Oh, that's very simple. Because we've never learned, and no one has taught us of who we really are. Nobody has told us that, first of all, you are not the body, and nobody has told us that you're not the nationality you're born into. You're not the country, the religion, everything that you've been taught is an accumulation of knowledge that actually does not serve you at all. And what serves you is what is present, which is happiness, peace, love, joy, and that which is the fullness of the moment, which is really love itself. So by the process of elimination, we actually realize that our true nature is non-duality.
By process of elimination?
By a process of elimination, you see, because if I think I am Burt, which is the name I was given, and I think I am this body because I'm used to it now, I've had it for so long, if I associate myself too much with it, then I carry all the negativity of that rough association, which changes all the time because it couldn't be who I really am. Now, let me give you an example. I couldn't be who I really am.
Okay.
Okay? If I show you pictures of myself when I was 15, and then 20, and then 25, and 30, 35, 40, 45, you'll find that everyone is different.
Mm-hmm.
Really. I've changed completely every 11 or 15 years or whatever, right? Which shows that the body is not who you are, but it is something that you've got used to being. At this point, I'd like to tell you about an experience I've had.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, sweetie.
I know you've heard it, but I'd like to repeat it because it's so apropos to the moment. In 2007, I was married to a woman named Sylvia, and we got along well. One evening, after having a nice dinner, I developed a fever. And this fever went up to 105 that very first night. And I was burning up, and she wanted to call the doctor. And I said, no, don't call the doctor. This is probably a spiritual emergency or a spiritual emergence. And so...
So who thought, Sylvia thought it was a spiritual emergence? Or you?
No, I did.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I did.
Okay, so you had sense.
The reason
Okay.
I thought that is because I've always suffered from very low vision, and right now I'm blind. And at that time I was seeing very little. But when I had that fever, I began to see things so clearly. The books on the shelves, the titles, everything became so clear, more than 20/20 vision type of thing, you see. And so I thought, something is happening here that I do not understand, but this is not, and it came so suddenly, it wasn't something I've eaten or anything like that, you see. So I let it be. The next day, it went up to 106, and I was literally burning up, and she took my temperature, and then after that, I would go into a lot of, trembling. Well, this went on for about 3 or 4 days. Finally, I couldn't eat, sleep, or do anything because it was rather serious. And then the next day, she took one look at me, and she saw that I was dying. And it was very clear that I was dying, but I wasn't afraid. And so she called 911, and the Vancouver General Hospital emergency bus took me over on a gurney. And when I arrived there, I had an out-of-body experience as soon as I arrived. And then I saw all the doctors and nurses and patients there.
And what, at that the moment you had the out-of-body experience, what did that feel like?
Well, this is the beautiful thing, is that the moment I experienced myself as out-of-body, I felt so free, so happy, so unencumbered. But more importantly is that I had a knowledge that I didn't have before, despite my psychology that I studied, despite all the books I read on spirituality and religious training. Yeah.
When you said you felt free, can you, before you go into the knowledge you got, what did it feel like? Like, was this instantaneous? Yeah. Did this seem to take time?
The moment I went out of the body, I saw the body lying on the gurney next to Sylvia, and it didn't matter. Like, that's who I am.
Okay.
And then I was free.
You were free.
So free, so happy, like I've never known before. But one thing that stuck with me till this moment is that when I looked at the people, I knew their whole lifetime, like their whole life. I knew what they were thinking, feeling, what they believed, even where they went to school, their nationality, everything. Every person that I saw them so clearly. But there was no judgment. There was no right or wrong. There was this clear seeing. But one thing that stuck with me is that when the doctors looked at their patients, they saw them as a body.
But back to your feeling.
Yeah.
I have a question about that. Did they seem like they were separate from you?
Oh, no, not at all.
So because it was all like a sensation of oneness, you understood their thoughts? Or?
Well, this is it. You see, the reason I felt and I knew them so well, it is because, well, first of all, I had no body, and that was okay with me, at the moment. But then I had this feeling that I couldn't judge them. There was no right or wrong in them.
There was no judgment.
No. It's
judgment.
just the way they were. And but when the doctors saw everybody as a body, I was a little kind
Was
of
that
more
judgment?
curious. No, it wasn't a judgment. It was something unexpected.
Unexpected. It was a surprise.
It's like a surprise.
Okay, so you were suddenly...
But I was,
even though that was a thought that you had believed your whole life, that you were a body.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's right. That's what I believe.
So it wasn't just you that believed it.
I used to be a bodybuilder before, so...
And all of a sudden you were free of that belief because you saw you weren't a body.
Right.
But at the same time you were aware that all the doctors and the staff in the hospital that were there believed what you had believed that a moment prior to that moment.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I saw a light.
Okay, a light that seemed to come into the
operating
room, or
no, a light is just like a dot in the distance, but it kept on coming towards me. But then again, I didn't know whether I was going towards it or it was going towards me. And all of a sudden, I was enveloped with this light. And this is what I wanted to say: is that I never knew love like this. Like I had a mother that was incredible, and the way she loved me. And but this was 1,000 times more loving.
Wow!
Really, it was. I never forgot it. So this is what I mean, that when we are empty, okay, and I use the word emptiness in my book, The 4 Unknown Facts of Reality. I call it emptiness, and the reason I call it emptiness is because all of a sudden you're empty of everything except the moment. But at the same time, there is nothing you don't know.
Okay.
So I knew that I don't die. Okay. I was never born, for example. I knew that I am not judged. And this was a heavenly state. So to me, it encouraged the belief in God, the light itself. Another thing that happened too, which I hardly ever mention, but I want to mention it now, is that despite the fact that I had lesions all over my body, red, blue, black, I looked a mess physically. I was very, very sick, Yet at the moment, I knew, it's just like a voice told me when I was in the light, that Burt, don't do anything to help yourself. Just eat as good as well as you can. Okay,
so you're now it's telling you you're going to be leaving the light and you're going to be returning to a body named Burt that can't eat. So it's giving you information now.
It's giving me information.
So you didn't when you arrived in the light. Let's backtrack.
Yeah.
Did you have so you were in the light, but somehow now you're being told you're going to have to leave the light.
I've been told, that's right, I don't go. Thank you.
Because you're being told what you're going to do once you leave this light.
Right.
So when you heard that, was there a sense of, oh no, or?
Well, I didn't want to leave the light at all.
Because at that very moment you went from a sense of non-judgment, not a body, completely free.
Completely free, happy.
And suddenly you were hearing thoughts.
It was my true nature. It's what everybody is in reality.
But you were being told at that time that you would have to return back to a body where you wouldn't be free and whatever else might come along.
That's right, yeah. Okay. As a matter of fact, when I was in the light, I looked at Sylvia's face and I saw she looked quite unhappy and worried looking at my body lying on the gurney. And I knew that I had to return.
Okay.
So, but there was the knowledge left with me that I don't need to do anything.
Okay.
Just let it be. In about 4 to 5 days, I'll be back to normal.
Okay. Back to the experience itself. The word emptiness in your book, The 4 Groundbreaking Unknown Facts of Reality. All there is emptiness.
All there is emptiness.
So, would you say what you experienced in your NDE? The light, would you call that's the emptiness you're talking about?
That's the emptiness. That's the beautiful emptiness that everybody is when they don't try to achieve anything or overcome anything or just be who they are. Okay. So the whole process really, when we practice spirituality or belong to a religion, we try to become. Okay? This told me very clearly, do not become, you already are.
Okay.
You see? So what we need to do is be in the moment. But the question is, how do you be in the moment? Okay, to answer your question. Just be totally empty. Totally empty of what happened yesterday, totally empty of what's going to happen next, totally empty of how you look or behave or anything like that.
So how do you do that?
That's right. And now you might say...
Because it sounds like it's something you have to do. Because we can't stop our thoughts.
You can.
If we're sitting there and we're having a thought that reminds us of something that terrible that happened yesterday, it just keeps coming. We're just the observer of the thought. We don't control it.
Very
so
good.
how do we eliminate that thought that seems
Become
to be...
aware of it and forgive it.
So forgive it. What does forgiving mean?
Well, to forgive means to... when something is holding you prisoner, in other words, something is not totally, what is the word? I keep forgetting that word.
Empty?
Empty, right. When there is no emptiness in you, there is a part in you that is worried, concerned, fearful, and so on. Mm-hmm. So what you do at the moment is simply see how that is affecting you, and you let it go. And you let it go by seeing that it couldn't be real. Mm-hmm. Because when I am totally in the moment, I'm okay.
Okay, so in your book, the word emptiness was presented as a word or an idea that would help one to achieve awakening, would help one to realize the truth. Mm-hmm. So you've just explained how an idea of emptying your mind through forgiveness creates that feeling of emptiness. Is there also perhaps, that's using the word empty, that sounds like in a way a verb almost, but you're empty, or maybe you're talking be empty. But the word emptiness also, would you say that word also conveys something
negative?
No, not negative. The word itself, because just the definition of emptiness can create a stronger understanding of what non-duality really is.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. People are afraid of it, but that's something that I mentioned in my book too. But right. That's another story for now.
So, but the word itself, emptiness, just the word itself, without having to create some kind of a definition to it, that word itself is a key or a way to help one understand how to waken up.
That's right.
So
that itself is the awakening.
Okay.
You know, you become totally empty in the moment. If somebody were to ask Burt, Ramana Maharshi, who was my master years ago, how was he from day to day? Mm-hmm. You know, we can say he was in samadhi, he's in joy, he's in a state of... But he was totally absent. No, not absent.
Empty.
Empty.
Empty, absent, they're the same words.
Yes, he was totally absent. Mm-hmm. He wasn't owned by his body. Mm-hmm. He was free, completely free. So when you look into his eyes, you can feel what he's feeling, and he transmits that energy, you see, the fullness of it. Mm-hmm.
So in your book, you said all fear is the fear of this emptiness.
All fear. Thank you for bringing it out. Yes. As a matter of fact, in my book, I mention it as number 2. Number 1 is that emptiness is known as God. But when I was writing it, there was this energy taking over, writing it through me. And it said that if you use the word God, people will look upon it as a religion. Mm-hmm. If you use the word love, then they use it as their concept of love, which, of course, love has no limit. Love has no concept.
No.
Any concept you have of love is not it. Okay? So therefore, call it emptiness. Okay. And emptiness itself covers two important functions. One is that it is our true nature. Because when a child is born 1 year old and you look at their face is empty, and that's why it's so cute and innocent.
So you think that's some residual left over before the
that's it,
separation?
Because the nature is empty, right? Okay, but there's another thing, and I never learned this in psychology, that the greatest fear, the only suffering is our fear of emptiness. And so, excuse me, so when we get in touch with this emptiness, we are getting in touch with that which blocks us from being empty at the same time. You see what I mean?
Right.
Because the mind is constantly thinking, wondering, hoping, achieving.
So is that because we have negative associations to the word emptiness? For instance, a negative association to the word emptiness might be the idea, emptiness, empty. Well, that sounds really boring.
Yes. Empty
That sounds like boredom.
Empty is frightening because it gives the idea that, oh, I feel so empty inside, as a negative, as if something is wrong.
Such as?
When it's been said that when people commit suicide, the greatest feeling that they experience is a feeling of emptiness, negative emptiness.
How would you know that?
I made a study of that.
Okay, you were a psychologist at one time.
Yeah. I was, I wanted to know.
But they didn't elaborate what they meant by empty. So they didn't mean like lonely. They felt a lack. They were afraid of death. They were bored. So the word empty. They were using the word empty to mean something else. So they weren't really talking about emptiness. They were talking about something else. They were talking about,
and it was a negative state.
Exactly. So somehow they used the word empty.
Yes.
But they really meant things like bored, lonely, fear of abandonment,
right,
worthlessness,
right,
suffering,
right.
Which emptiness is none of those things,
right.
So if we look at, for instance,
that's because we're not looking at the word emptiness itself.
Exactly.
Because if you look at the word emptiness itself, it has no beginning or end.
Exactly.
It's empty.
Exactly.
How can it be bad?
So now that we've identified what emptiness is not, it's not death or boredom or lack or loneliness or suffering.
Right. Yeah.
What emptiness is, this is really interesting. If you look at the attributes of heaven, for instance, and you compare heaven to the world, right?
Right. If you present
yeah. So if you
how would you describe heaven?
Well, for instance, if you look at heaven, it's changeless. If you look at the world, we have time, everything changes. I had a glass of water, now I have a little bit of water, it's changed. But if we look at heaven, it's changeless.
It's changeless.
It's changeless. So if you look
so heaven is completely empty.
It's changeless.
Yeah.
It's
changeless. It's empty.
And emptiness is changeless.
Emptiness is like, to me, it's a very beautiful word. I go for a walk at the beach, and there is endless space of the beach, for example, endless water or blue sky with no clouds. It's so totally empty.
But it's more than that.
But it's more than
or
that.
Or less than that.
It gives you a feeling of peace, of love.
But emptiness,
being totally here.
But emptiness is the reality.
Emptiness is the reality, our reality.
Right. So it's not only our reality when we're at the beach by the water. It's reality when you're in a garbage dump or or whatever you're doing, it's the reality.
It's the reality.
It's the reality.
Right. When you realize it, we can call that awakening. You see? Awakening to the truth. Because you're not a duality. You might say, okay, you're not a duality. What does that mean? Now, one thing I know since I've been with you is that you have a very good grasp of, non-duality.
Non-duality.
Yeah, and non-duality is, just I'll refer you briefly, but I'll let her explain what non-duality is. Non-duality simply means that
there's not two.
There's not two. Duality means two.
Two. That's right.
See? You are one with everyone. Wherever you go, there you are, and you are part of everyone you meet and see and experience.
Well, you're not just everyone you meet.
Love.
You're everything.
You're everything.
You're everything, and everything that seems to be in everything is equally you as what you accidentally perceived yourself to be. So duality is when you perceive that the body is you and everything else is something out there that you are now able to perceive through your perceptions. Non-duality is saying this thing is all one. There's one mind that's perceiving it all. So I'm perceiving this hand. I move this hand. I perceive this hand. I move this hand. This is not me and that is not you. All of this is one thing that's coming from my one mind.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's non-duality. So back to emptiness. So emptiness is that.
That's right.
Because nothing is real. It's all a projection.
It's all a projection.
It's just a projection of one mind. I'm actually outside of it. It just seems to be happening in front of me.
Yeah, right.
I'm not here. I'm not the person who's going to die. In emptiness, there's eternal life.
That's right.
In heaven, there's eternal life. So what other attributes are there in contrast to what we consider dualistic to emptiness?
You know, if I were to think of a most powerful word of all, would be love.
Love.
The true love.
Love.
True love is when you see another as yourself.
I love that word.
Yeah. Love is all that there is. If we were to talk about God, because God is the oneness itself, it is love. Perfect and unconditional
love.
Love.
So emptiness and love are the same thing?
Exactly the same thing. So, but we don't achieve it by reading many books, by studying, although it's okay, it helps us to get to some knowledge. But the real knowledge comes from living it. And living it means that you begin to see that when you hurt another, you hurt yourself, and vice versa.
Because there aren't any.
We're all one.
That's right. There aren't any, because it's you doing it. So you're the one playing with basically seeming dolls out there, and you're the one that's an angry doll and a victim doll. But it's all you doing the one thing.
But it's all you doing the one thing. Yeah. Now, it's been said in the beginning, in the very beginning, we were all pure being, pure knowing.
Pure knowing.
Pure knowing, right. And then there comes a time, so the Bible tells us, Course in Miracles tells us, when man fell into sin, so to speak, by simply thinking...
Man?
Well, mankind.
Man.
Yeah.
But prior to man, there was just abstract oneness.
Just abstract oneness.
So it wasn't man falling, it was something else falling.
It was something else falling.
What?
But there was, that's right. So there was a, in science, they put it down as the Big Bang.
The Big Bang.
Right.
And the Course calls it a tiny mad idea.
A tiny mad
What would
idea.
it be like if I were separate?
That's right. And then consciousness came and took over our total pure awareness.
So there was no consciousness before that. And all of a sudden there was a thought or an idea. What would it be like to be outside of this oneness or separate or something other than emptiness? Some thought along those lines, right? There was that thought. So consciousness came into play because there was suddenly conscious awareness of that thought.
That's right.
So that's the first consciousness. Is this question?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. And the separation, we begin to think, no, that's one wonderful thing about the Course in Miracles. You love the Course and so do I. And I think it's the greatest teaching there is. And the one thing that it says in the Course is that, what does it say?
God is.
Yeah. No, isn't that beautiful? God is, and then it stops. No. But that's what it says. That's the greatest of all.
Right. So what does it say about the splits of the fall?
Yeah, the split of the fall.
Oh,
you see,
right.
we keep thinking that because of this separation, there is suffering. All this is happening out.
Exactly.
You see, like what is so beautiful is that even now we're suffering this pandemic disease, and in California there were many fires, many changes are happening, a lot of suffering is happening, and people wonder why this happens. Well, it happens because somehow or other we need to go through this form to make us realize who we really are. because this is called the fifth dimension.
Right, but
now.
this is an illusion.
But this is also an
So,
illusion.
so what happens?
So because of the separation, we seem to be going
separation.
through. Very good to be bringing
Right.
it up all the time, right?
Yes.
Because we're not going through anything really,
Right.
in truth.
Because what happened was, after we had our consciousness and the first thought, which was a question,
Mm-hmm.
an answer came.
Right.
But at this point in time, the mind split into two, because now there's no longer non-duality. There's me and a thought.
That's right.
And so now the mind is split, and the memory of heaven is gone. So we no longer, now we think we're two things, or we're something with something else out there. And we've forgotten perfect oneness, because now we have consciousness.
That's right.
But the memory of heaven is still there with us. But when we
because we know it's our true nature.
But when we asked the question, what would it be like to be separate? All of a sudden another answer came.
Mm-hmm.
And this answer was the ego saying, now you've offended God in oneness. You can't ever get back. You got to feel good and bad about this.
These are the teachings that come out.
Yes,
of course, have no truth.
Actually, of the Course, yes. This is the Course in Miracles explanation of the fall.
Right.
And then what happened is there was such incredible. We listened to this ego, supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
The ego said, you're in trouble now. Once God finds you, he's going to come after you, and you're going to be destroyed again. This is the story of the metaphysics of the Course in Miracles. So what happens is a world is projected out. We have this guilt, this incredible sense of discomfort from no longer having joy, happiness, love, abundance, freedom. Now we have the opposites as well. So there's a feeling of discomfort.
Yeah.
So but then there's a feeling of guilt and self-blame. So there's still there's consciousness, but there's no perception at this point. What happens is the ego says, hey, let's project out a world where your guilt is out there in other people and other things and not in you. And you associate yourself with this as the victim or the innocent one.
The guilty
and
one.
Those, or the hidden guilty one.
Right.
And those people as the victimizers. But they're all you. It's one story.
But it's all us.
But the kicker...
Isn't that beautiful?
But the kicker is...
The
second voice, the first voice said, when you said, what would it be like to be separate? This is what the first voice said, that's essentially the ego. The second voice, which was the Holy Spirit, said, it's just not possible. It never happened.
It never happened.
And thus you're empty. It's back to emptiness.
I'm back to emptiness. Oh, that is so beautiful, so beautiful.
Yeah. I love the word emptiness, but in your book it says that the number one fear is the fear of emptiness. Part of it is the word, and we've just explained how there's no reason to be afraid of emptiness, because it's really a helpful
word. And that's
word.
why, and the Course in Miracles is so beautiful about this too, is that all you need to do is simply forgive it every time that you feel that feeling.
And forgiveness is recognizing that even this is not non-dualistic. This is non-dualistic. So the question is, where did this one mind that seemed to be projecting all this out come from?
Yeah, it was always there.
Yeah.
It was always there. But when the split happened, consciousness had to take over. Right. So this meant that we are pure being. We are pure being. Okay? But from pure being came the ability to be aware of something. In other words, I created a consciousness. Consciousness means I am conscious of this.
Yes.
You see?
Exactly.
Well, the moment consciousness was created, a split was created. But in truth,
it never happened.
It never happened.
It never happened.
And that's another ball game.
But that's trust in your book.
That's
the fourth one, because the fourth one is saying trust that there is only emptiness. It never changed.
Right.
It's still that way right now.
So one thing that I'd like to leave with listeners is that all suffering, all of it, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, is simply a fear of emptiness. When you become aware of that and get in touch with that awareness, what happens is that the fear becomes, you fall in love with emptiness. And the moment you fall in love with emptiness, it's just like falling in love with God, which is one and the same thing, because it's all one. Okay, and at that moment you're transformed.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful, honey.
See, and
Wow.
that's the completion. I didn't know that when we were going to do this. I didn't know what we were going to do. But thank you for creating this.
You're welcome, honey. I didn't know it either. I thought we were going to talk about something else. But this was beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah,
honey.
thank you.
And thank you.
Mm-hmm.